Let's see. Where would you rank it on your favorite Marvel movies? Honestly, I would say Iron Man 1 is at the top. Number 2 would be Captain America. Number 3 would be Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Number 4 would be Thor, and then number 5 would be this movie. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really good film. It was pretty sweet. Let's see. Is Bishop the main character or is Logan? It's Wolverine's the main character. Bishop's a supporting character. He really doesn't have a major role in the film. The only time you see him is, of course, in the future. It's the story really revolves around Wolverine, Beast, and Magneto, and Mystique, and Charles Xavier. That's really kind of where the story lies. Wolverine, of course, though, is the main character. Just wondering what you thought about the age difference between the Maximoff siblings, assuming the little girl was Wanda, when they're supposed to be twins in the comics, and the age gap between Pietro and Eric didn't seem quite right. Yeah, the age gap between Quicksilver and Magneto just didn't quite seem the way it was supposed to be. But you're talking about there's a huge gap, though. Magneto was, I would go as far as to say maybe 12, 13 years old in the beginning of X-Men Last Stand, and that was during World War II. This is 1973, so we're talking about, let's say that maybe this took place in 1943. He's at least 30 years old. He might even be well into his 40s. So I would say that gap kind of seems about right now that I think about it. It seems about right in terms of the actual age. Now, in terms of Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, as I understand it, that's not the Scarlet Witch. That's supposed to just be a younger sister of his. She's not actually billed as the Scarlet Witch, and the Scarlet Witch, to my knowledge, doesn't actually appear in X-Men Days of Future Past. I could be wrong here, but I don't believe I am. Let's see. Did they ever explain how Professor X comes back to life? I know he was at the end of the Wolverine, but I must have missed if they explained. Was that Cable as a little boy? Kid has an M on his face when the mutants were being, read more, rounded up? Or are all mutants in the future marked with that? What are your reactions on the new and vastly improved Sentinels? Thanks in advance. You're welcome in advance. All right, so let's take this first one. Did they explain how Professor X comes back to life? No, he's just there. We assume that, of course, because the movie retcons, because it pretty much says that X-Men Last Stand never happened, he never actually died, and so because he didn't die, of course, he's there. Now, in terms of was that Cable as a little kid? No, Cable comes from a future that's 15 centuries beyond the Days of Future Past timeline. Cable comes from the 39th century, which is the year 4000 or something like that. I can't remember. He's a couple thousand years ahead. He's raised. I'm sorry. He's born in the present, but he's raised a couple thousand years into the future after the Days of Future Past. So no, that to my knowledge, that is not Cable. That's simply just a kid with an M on his face. Let's see. Mutants being rounded up. Okay. What are your reactions on the new and vastly improved Sentinels? Okay. So this was an interesting thing to me. This was really kind of interesting. I actually thought it was cool, and I know there's going to be some people who are traditionalists in terms of the Sentinels, but I actually thought it was cool. And the reason why is because you've got some characters with some crazy powers, and the way that it's done, they have full use of their abilities. The mutants do. In the comics, they had inhibitor collars, and that's really what they were wearing. When you saw the opening credits and you saw those things on the back of their necks with the orange circle or kind of oval, that was an inhibitor collar, and it kept the mutants from being able to use their powers. In this one, they don't have inhibitor collars, so they have full use of their abilities. I think it was a great idea to really make the Sentinels more formidable in the sense that they would adapt to everything, because it really kind of establishes the fact that there really is no overcoming this future. There's no getting past it. That in the end, all these mutants are really doing is just kind of delaying the inevitable. They're all going to die unless they change the future or change the past. And I think that the Sentinels really kind of being as powerful as they were is a stand-in for the comics when they had nuclear threat. Because in the comics, the whole reason why it was important that they destroy the Sentinel program was because the Sentinels were going to move outside of North America. And the rest of the world had said that if the Sentinels expanded outside of North America, that they were going to launch a nuclear strike against the United States. And so in the comics, you had this effort to destroy the Sentinel program in the future at the same time that Kitty Pryde is trying to help the X-Men stop the assassination of Senator Robert Kelly, Charles Xavier, and Moira McTaggart in the past. And so instead of having a threat of nuclear war in this this movie, they instead kind of replaced that with Sentinels that were just basically unstoppable. So in the end, there was going to be total destruction, but at this point, it was just really kind of going to be at the hands of Sentinels as opposed to nuclear bombs. Let's see. Scroll down a little bit further. What do you think is better, Captain America 2 or X-Men Days of Future Past? Captain America 2, definitely. Tell me how you feel about Robert DaCosta, Sunspot powers, and his role in the film. Okay, so I don't remember whether we answered this or not. I may have forgotten, but okay. So Sunspot, I think we did answer this. He's really kind of an amalgamation of Sunfire and Sunspot in the sense that Sunfire can absorb solar energy and project plasma or fire, and Sunfire absorbs plasma energy or absorbs solar energy and projects fire with it or plasma, and Sunspot absorbs solar energy and uses it for physical strength. We saw him shooting fire out of his hands, and so that was really, I think, kind of a nod to Sunfire. But then we also saw him, I think, use physical strength, which is, of course, is the base power, the inherent ability of Sunspot himself. Spoiler, who do you think the Four Horsemen will be? Okay. So, like we said, I don't think the Four Horsemen, in terms of their reveal in the post-credits trailer, really matters. It just establishes to us the fact that Apocalypse has Four Horsemen. So we know that he is already very powerful, in addition to the fact that he's creating the pyramids in front of us using his mind, which is crazy powerful. But I think that if they decide to go ahead and go with the Age of Apocalypse storyline, I don't know. I mean, you might have someone like Ink, who might play the role of Pestilence. You might have somebody like Wolverine who will play the role of Death. They might bring in Archangel and have him play the role of Death. I have no idea who they're going to be. The problem here is that Death is the most commonly interchanged character when it comes to Apocalypse's horsemen. You had Wolverine as Death. You had Gambit, I think, as Death, although he might have been War. You had Archangel as Death. Death is the one that interchanges the most. So the other three, Pestilence, Famine, and I cannot remember the last War. Those are the ones that really kind of stay the same for the most part. They don't really change. So at this point, I don't want to speculate because I have no earthly clue. We haven't been given that many characters so far. I mean, we've only really been given a handful of characters to work with. And so there's never been an instance where really anything more than two of these characters have ever been one of Apocalypse's horsemen. So I have no earthly clue who the horsemen are going to be. Do you like the Sentinel design? Okay, we answered that part about the Sentinel design. Are Magneto's powers constrained or restrained by plot, budget, or vision? Not really. There's actually a point where he lifts the entire stadium, like lifts an entire football field into the air and then drops it over the White House. So there's this great big huge barrier around the White House, which is really cool. Do you like the time travel aspect of the movies or time travel in general as a plot device? Not really, because I feel like it's a magic eraser. They say, okay, well, we kind of wrote ourselves into a hole. Time travel, let's fix the problem. I don't really like that. I really like, I think that if time travel is taken away from the equation, then it really kind of requires the writer to make a more dynamic story, because now not only do they have to create a compelling story, they have to create a compelling ending to the story, as opposed to just kind of using a magic eraser and saying, okay, somebody traveled back in time, they changed the past, and now everything's fixed. This is really kind of an easy out, and I don't really care for that too much. Let's see, who is your favorite movie X-Men character? Man, I would say the younger Magneto. I really think that he is, he's a great character. Michael Fassbender plays him really, really well, and he's really dynamic, and he's really complicated, and he's really intriguing. I would say that Michael Fassbender's Magneto is probably my favorite character from the X-Men movies. Who is your favorite X-Men character? Okay, just in general, I guess. Probably Mad Jim Jaspers is one of my favorite characters because he's just so cool and kooky, and he's uber powerful. He has the ability to warp reality. There are some people that can do that stuff too, like Mr. M, I think, can warp reality and stuff. But Mad Jim Jaspers is probably my favorite character. Let's see. What's your? Oh, I'm sorry. I liked the '90s cartoon. Do you think you will enjoy the movie, or it doesn't matter? I think you'll enjoy the movie. You know, it's there's some similarities between the '90s cartoon and the movie, but you know the movie really kind of stands on its own 2 feet. You could have never seen X-Men the animated series, go in and watch the movie and walk away understanding what's going on. So the movie's not really like the TV show is not really a prerequisite for understanding the movie.